What's up? Wagwan, big up on yourself. It's your boy Illuminati linking up for Crypto Caribbean TV and the Crypto Today show. In this day of our Lord Satoshi, the 1st of February 2023. Now in crypto, there's always a lot to talk about, but today we will be talking about something which occurs a little bit more on the tangential of the crypto market. Something that, in my opinion, drives home the point as to why a decentralized monetary system is so important, one which allows for self-custody of our assets, and particularly in this global economic landscape. Now, just a couple days ago, we would have discussed what is taking place across in Nigeria. Today, we journey across the Sahara Desert into the Middle East, specifically to Lebanon. And we're going to talk a little bit about the devaluation of their Lebanese pound today by the Central Bank of Lebanon. Now, guys, just a reminder that nothing that I share in these videos should be misconstrued as financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Remember the ICE rule. It's all about information, conversation, and education. Let's get into it straight away. So as of today, Lebanon will be adopting a new official exchange rate of 15,000 Lebanese pounds per US dollar, which is a 90% devaluation from its current official rate, right? And that rate has remained unchanged for the last 25 years up until today. Now, before you start screaming bloody murder, the shift from the old rate of 1,500 to the new rate of 15,000 is still a far cry from the black market value, where the Lebanese pound was trading up to last week as high as 57,000 Lebanese pounds to $1 US. Now, the official change will apply specifically to the banks and those kind of official exchange settings. And it will most likely lead to a decrease in the equity of these particular institutions, which many may argue was at the center of the country's economic financial implosion in 2019. Now, in the span of a year and a half, Lebanon went from what could have been described as a middle-income country into one of the worst economies in the world. Now, what caused that? Now, Lebanon was kind of a glitzy party capital of the Middle East, right? A lot of foreigners would go there. Parties would go late into the night, late into the morning, sounding like a Caribbean island. But what they had was a lot of economic inequality, right? So the rich were very rich and the poor, unfortunately, were very poor. But things were still manageable. They weren't, extreme cases of people going hungry. You could still consider Lebanon as being very much a middle income economy, right, so to speak. I mean, like I said, like a Caribbean country. But the shortened version of the story is that basically the Lebanese lira was pegged to the US dollar, right? And the peg was managed by the central bank. In good times, the US flowed into the country and it was easy for the central bank to maintain the peg. Very similar to what we see existing in a lot of countries in the world. As things happened in the region, for example, the war in Syria, which is their neighbor, and other events, that flow of US dollars basically turned into a trickle, right? And it became extremely difficult for the central bank to access US dollars. So what the central bank decided to start doing is actually borrowing US dollars from the citizens at high rates of interest, as much as 20% in certain instances. But how was the central bank really paying the interest on these loans that they were taking from the citizens, right? Now, the Central Bank of Lebanon couldn't operate like the US Federal Reserve and just, print more dollars to pay back their debt, right? So what were they actually doing? So it basically turns out that they were using new investors' funds to pay old investors, right? Sound familiar? Can you say Bernie Madoff? Can you say Clico? Can you say DSS? Can you say Ponzi, right? Now, this put a greater strain on our already strained economy. And it basically broke when the government decided that to manage the economy, they were going to introduce a tax on WhatsApp calls. Yes, guys, I said a tax on WhatsApp calls. People had enough, right? So basically people took to the streets and started protesting. Because of the protest, the banks decided they're going to shut their doors due to security concerns. And then for 2 weeks, only people who had links could have accessed their money. Now, after the particular 2-week period, and people went back to the banks to access their money, what we saw happen is basically what is known as a bank run, which obviously the banks couldn't meet the demand for US dollars or even lira. And in certain instances, they limited people's access to their money as little as $100 per week, you understand, was made available. And what this basically created was a parallel market or a black market. And exactly what the central bank was trying to avoid happened. In the black market, the Lebanese pound, the Lebanese lira basically became a floating currency. And the value was basically being determined by demand and supply. Now, what happened to the lira is that it traded less and less, ultimately resulting in the Lebanese experiencing hyperinflation. We've heard that story before, which brings us right back to where we started as the central bank struggles to manage the parallel market and to manage the peg and the implosion of the economy and basically the monetary policy of the country. They decided to officially repeg the Lebanese pound to the US dollar. Now, I mean, depending on your vice, a good pegging might sound like a good time. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked out so far very well for Lebanon. So we'll wait to see what this new repegging does. Guys, if any of this sounds familiar to you, if it seems familiar to the economy that you exist in or operate in, what can I say? Fix the money and we can fix the world. And remember, Bitcoin fixes it all. Guys, be safe out there. Adoption is inevitable. Illuminati out. Bless.